Ever stare at a Niagara asset and think, what the hell am I looking at? Why? And I'll show you how to bend this jump pad into fiery fist energy rings. Well, I'm excited. I hope you are, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, true creators, so here's how we're gonna start. We're in a 5.6 project, third person template. We're gonna go to the content drawer, and then we're going to go into the content folder, into the third person, and then into the blueprint. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pull up the third person character here, okay? Now, right here, we're just gonna go ahead and start building our code out. We'll zoom in here a little bit. And what we're gonna start with is, we're gonna do a left mouse button. Next, we're gonna need a play montage because this is how we're gonna display how we're using our different Niagara effects. So we're gonna do a play montage. And then right here, we're gonna do something called a system. An attached system, I believe it's called. Spawn attached. Okay. Now, we're gonna do this on the begin notify. We're gonna attach this right here. We're gonna attach the pressed onto the montage right here. Line these up nice and neat. And what we need to do is we're gonna need to grab the character's mesh because that's what we're gonna be controlling. Okay, so we're gonna drag off of here, connect to the skeletal mesh component here. And then we also wanna do an attached component right here. Now, where we're gonna attach it to is going to be the hand underscore R bone, okay? And we make sure you have it exactly as this in lower caps because that's how it's called out in the actual graph, okay? Or I'm sorry, on the actual skeleton. Right here, we're gonna need to change this keep relative to, it's gonna be a snap to target and world location. Then what we wanna do right here is we're gonna promote this and we're gonna call this effect ref, okay? And then we're gonna need one more. So for the system template, because we're gonna be swapping it out, we're just gonna promote this as well, and we can leave it at its default, okay? And actually, we can neaten this up with a little reroute node here, just to make it nice and neat. Then while we're here, let's go ahead and we're gonna do a control and left, or I'm sorry, we're gonna hold down D and do a left click, which will give us a delay, and we're gonna add that. Instead of 0.2 seconds, I'm just gonna do the delay for 1 second. And then right off of here, we're gonna pull off and we're going to do a destroy component, okay? And then we'll attach that as well. Okay, now the next thing we're gonna need is we're gonna need some keys to set our different systems that we're gonna populate. So we're gonna do key, we're gonna activate them by using key 1. So that's this one, a keyboard event 1. And then we're just gonna do that with key 2. And then finally, key 3. All right, so neaten these up. And a lot of times I use these little grid markers to help me line stuff up to make things nice and neat. So yeah. Now, we're gonna need this system template here because this is what we'll be changing by using these different numbers here. So to do that, we're just going to hold down the Alt key and we're gonna just left click and drag the systems template and just drag it here. And you can just hold this down and just do it 3 times. And that should cover it, okay? And then just nice and neatly line them up. Okay, now let's just make sure we don't forget to compile and save everything. That's important. And for the next step is we're gonna go back to our content drawer, right? go to select the content at this tier, and we're going to select this filter here, and we want our Niagara effects. So let's see if we can find that real quick. Oh, yeah, right here. So it's checked here. Just hit Niagara System, and you'll see this jump pad here, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to duplicate it. So what we want to do is do a Control D, and that hit Enter, and then Control D, hit Enter again, and then Control D again. And that'll give us our 3 different Niagara effects. Now, let's go ahead and populate our different ones here. So, but before we do that, let's do a Control-Shift-S to save everything. And right here, we're just going to highlight the jump pad 1. And for key 1, we're going to hit this little arrow here, and that's going to populate that. And we're going to do that for the rest. Same thing, highlight and populate, okay? Highlight and then populate. All right, right here, highlight here, I'm sorry. Highlight here and then populate, okay? And make sure we do a compile and save. Now, I'm gonna, right here, okay, so I'm just gonna do a real quick thing here. I just wanna edit the editor preferences real quick, just because I hate the way that the opening of the location is not over the main window. So let's just fix that real quick, okay? Now, we're gonna open all these up, so we can just select the first one, hold down Shift, select the last one, right click, and then just select Edit, and that'll populate everything at the top, okay? Now, let's go ahead and start with jump pad 1. Okay, so to start out here, what we're gonna do is we're going to actually change the color and the scale, and I'm gonna show you that real quick, okay? So for instance, the color, as you can see right here, you can actually change it by double clicking here. And I'm just going to make it a little bit, I guess, a little bit of a different color just because. So let's do it like so and hit OK. And that's going to change the color to that. Now, you can also get rid of, there's these things here called these different attributes of this. So we've got a glowing base. So if we hit this, that'll get rid of the base. If we hit this, the base will come back. Same thing with the rings. Rings are gone, rings are back. And then those little spores, we can actually get rid of that. And I think I'm gonna permanently get rid of that for now. Okay, so now we've got our glowing base and we've got our bands. Now, let's go ahead and manipulate the size of each of these. Now, like I said, you might deal with Niagara effects like fire or something that may have multiple layers. This is how you turn them on and off, okay? So right here, what we can do is, let's start with the glowing base. We select the glowing base, and this part, I believe is where it's initialized particle. You can click that, and what you're gonna look for is something called mesh attributes right here, right? And we're gonna adjust the scale. Now keep in mind, this is only for the glowing base. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna set this to 0.2 because I want it pretty small. Let's see. To enter. See how small that got? Yes, exactly. And actually, I don't know if I like this color. I'm gonna go back and make it a little bit lighter. There we go. I like it a little bit lighter. All right. So now for the bands, we can do that same thing because we want the bands to match, right? So let's go ahead and adjust the scale as well. And basically, when you highlight this is giving you all the settings, okay? Now, the other important thing here is for these settings, let's go back to the glow base. If you want to be able to rotate this inside of the blueprint at runtime, you're gonna have to click local space as true, okay? And we're gonna do that for all of them, okay? So we can't forget that because later on in the blueprint, we'll adjust the rotation from there. Now, let's go ahead and let's go back to what we were doing. So let's go to initial particles, just to minimize all that. And then go right back here to the universal scale. And we're gonna do a 0.2 again. Now we've got these little bitty, little rings, little thing. It's cool, right? So, okay, so let's go ahead and make sure you hit save. And we're gonna move on to the next one. So we're gonna do this 2 more times. So now for this particular one, I'm going to get rid of the base. I'm going to keep the bands. I'm going to get rid of the spores, which are those little bitty trinkly things in here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna, once again, not particle state, but let's see, let's go back to the bands here. And we're just gonna adjust this one, but this one we're gonna do at 0.4, okay? Let's do, okay, and enter. And that's gonna make the bands a little bit bigger than the other one. And we can change this particular color. Let's make it a nice, cool, like red, okay? Just to give a little bit of variation here. Actually, that looks more orange than red, doesn't it? All right, let's see what we got going down here. I still wanted to hit OK. And now we've got these little rings here with no base. And it's a little bit bigger. I may change it later, but for now, this is pretty good. Now, let's go ahead and, again, make sure you add the local space. Otherwise, this will not rotate, okay? So, and actually, you know what? You can do it for all. I mean, just in case you want to change it later. And that's fine. So I'm just going to do for the bands now. Okay. Now, let's move on to the jump pad 3. And what we got here is we're going to actually remove the base, but we're going to leave the spores on. And we're going to change the color to green. Okay. Let's go ahead and change that color to green. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this right here and do a Control-C just to copy that. And then I'm going to hit OK. So that way I can change my other one. So we've got the spores here. Let's go ahead and adjust its scale. Let's check the scale. Particle state, initialize particle. Yeah, we're going to leave it at 1. So this will be our big one, right? Same thing with the spores. We're not going to change anything. But with the spore color, we will, let's see. Oh, yeah, it's changed already. So yes. Okay, so now that we've got all 3 of these set up, we can just go ahead and hit save. And let's go back to our character. So now we can go ahead and import, put in our actual rotation for what we want this emitter to look like. On the rotation, it's simple. We're just going to put 90 right here, and that should do it. Not negative, but it should be just a regular positive 90. And then do a compile and save. And then what we're going to need is a montage. So let's go ahead and grab a montage. To grab the montage, we have to create the montage. So let's go to the content folder once again. We can go ahead and we can uncheck this filter. We don't need it. Yes. So right here, we can go ahead and go back to the filter. And what we're going to select is the animation. So let's go for a custom filter. I believe it is. Let's see, or all filters, right? So go to animations, and it's going to be the animation sequence. We're just going to check that, and that's what we want. And what we want to type here is attack, just to narrow it down. And the attack that I thought was kind of neat was this charged attack. So we're just going to highlight this, right-click it, and then do a create. We're going to create a montage. Create anim montage. Once you do that, just hit enter. You can leave it at its default name. Hit Control-Shift-S. And now you see it disappeared, but it didn't. So what we want to do is we're going to go and we're going to reset the filters. And now you can see we have our montage here. So let's just go ahead and highlight that. And then let's just go ahead and populate that into the field here. Okay. Now let's do a compile and a save. Now, we do have to do one other thing here. Because we have this firing on notify, we need to create a notify. So let's just go ahead and hit this little magnifying glass here. Go to that asset again. We're going to open up the asset, okay? And let's see. So right here, we're going to, let me see. We're going to see. Wait, oh, sorry. I didn't mean to hit record. We're going to hit the play button, okay? We're going to pause it. I'm just going to rotate it a bit so I can see what's going on. And what we want to do is we want to have the notify activate at the point of impact, which could be, I'm going to say 35 maybe. Yes, it's about right here. So just find a nice spot right on there and then just right click, as you can tell right here. It should be on this track here, right click, and we're going to add a notify. Just montage notify. We don't need to name it or do anything. This is just triggering it, right? So yes. And then that way, every time it happens, it'll trigger right here, okay? So let's just go ahead and do a save. Okay, so we're all done with this. We can go ahead and we don't need this right now. We can close this out. And let's just make sure that when you're looking at the actual jump pad 3 that you've got local space set on the spores and on the actual bands, okay? Now, going back to the third person, make sure that in this graph here, right here at the delay, this says at least 1 or 1.2 or something to that nature. So that way it'll give the actual animation or the effect to last a certain amount of time. So I'm gonna do 1.2 and see how that looks and hit compile and save. But yeah, this is very important. You want to give it enough time for the effect to play and then for the component to destroy it. If it's 0.2, it's just not going to work. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to show you. So just in case, and this can happen in other blueprints as well, you might want to set, like for this variable here, look at it and set a default in here. Because if you don't, what'll happen is you'll get an error. So like right here, I'm just going to use the default jump pad because it just works better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight that, and it'll stop you from getting an error message, and just populate that here, and that's it. So we'll do a compile and a save. And then from that point, okay, and from that point now we can go ahead and test everything out. So let's go ahead and go into our third person. We're going to hit the play button. I'm just gonna hit F11 real quick just to go in there. And as you can see, the default one, it just gives it something, okay? Now we didn't do any adjustments to it because I'm using the default one, but if you hit the 1 key, now you can see the difference in how we've manipulated that default one. See that? All of them are different. So here's what the default looks like, and here's another example of what like number 2 looks like. So, and that's how it's done. Nice, you completed the video. Let's see what you can do with the next one. Let's go.